I never thought I would live to hear the words that shattered me completely. It was supposed to be a day of celebration. A day filled with love, balloons, and the laughter of children. My daughter had just turned 18, and I was determined to make her birthday unforgettable. I baked her favorite cake, red velvet with cream cheese frosting, decorated the living room with golden streamers, and even played the old songs she used to dance to as a little girl. But instead of gratitude, instead of even the smallest smile, she looked me in the eye in front of everyone and whispered words so cold they pierced straight through my heart. The best gift is if you just died. The room fell silent. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the background chatter, it all froze as if time itself had stopped. I felt my hands tremble as I held the knife I was about to use to cut the cake. My throat tightened and I could barely breathe. Everyone stared, waiting for me to respond, but I couldn't move. It was as if my body betrayed me, turning me into stone. My daughter, my only child, had just wished me dead. On her own birthday. I forced myself to smile, though my lips quivered. "Sweetheart, what did you say?" My voice cracked like old wood, weak and trembling. She didn't flinch. She didn't take it back. She just crossed her arms, rolled her eyes, and repeated louder this time, making sure every soul in the room heard. "The best gift is if you just died." Gasps filled the room. My sister, who stood by the window, dropped her glass. My neighbor, who had come by to celebrate, covered her mouth in shock. And yet my daughter's face remained as cold as ice, not a hint of regret in her eyes. Inside me a storm began to brew. How could she say this? Had I failed so terribly as a mother? What had I done to deserve such cruelty? But deep down beneath the raw wound her words carved into me, a darker truth stirred, because I knew something. I knew that my daughter wasn't just lashing out from teenage rebellion. No, someone had planted this hatred inside her heart. I excused myself, walking out of the living room before tears could betray me. I locked myself in the bathroom, gripping the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. I stared at my reflection, an aging woman with tired eyes, wrinkles carved not just by time but by years of sacrifice. I had given up everything for that girl. I worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads after her father left. I skipped meals so she could eat. I walked miles in the cold because I couldn't afford gas, just to make sure she never missed school. And now, on the night of her birthday, she wished me dead. But what hurt me even more was the look she gave me after saying it. A look I had seen before, one that reminded me of her father. That same arrogant smirk, that same cruel spark in the eyes. It was like looking at a ghost from my past, one I thought I had buried long ago. That night, after the guests left in awkward silence, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the untouched cake. My daughter had stormed off to her room without so much as a thank you. The golden candles burned down to stubs, dripping wax onto the frosting like tears. I wanted to throw the whole cake away, but instead, I cut a small slice for myself. As I chewed, my chest ached and tears rolled down my cheeks, mixing with the sweetness of the dessert. It was supposed to be a night of joy. Instead, it felt like a funeral. The next morning, I tried to pretend nothing happened. I told myself she didn't mean it, that maybe it was just a bad joke. But when I walked into her room to check on her, I froze. Her suitcase lay open on the floor, clothes thrown in carelessly. Her laptop and favorite books were gone. A note rested on her pillow. My hand shook as I picked it up and read the words that made my knees buckle. "Mom, don't try to find me. I don't need you anymore. Dad was right about you. You ruin everything. Goodbye." The paper slipped from my fingers. My daughter was gone. She had chosen him, the man who abandoned us, for me. And in that moment I realized this wasn't just teenage anger. This was betrayal. A betrayal years in the making. But what haunted me most wasn't her absence. It was the thought echoing in my head. What if her father had been poisoning her against me all along? What if this was his revenge? I sat on her bed, gripping the note when my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed on the screen. My heart pounded as I answered. A familiar voice, deep and smooth, filled the silence. "Did you get my gift?" he asked. It was him. Her father. And that was the moment I realized, this wasn't just about my daughter leaving. This was a war. His voice slithered into my ear like poison, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. My grip on the phone tightened as I whispered, "What have you done? Where is she?" My heart was beating so violently I thought it might burst. He chuckled, low and menacing, The kind of laugh that instantly transported me back to the years of torment I thought I had escaped. Relax, he said casually. She's with me now. With her real parent. I told you one day she'd see through your lies. I felt my blood run cold. Lies. I snapped, my voice breaking. The only liar is you. You abandoned us. You left me with nothing. He didn't deny it. He didn't even sound ashamed. Instead, he sighed as though he was bored of the conversation already. You never understood, did you? She deserves better than your miserable life. You work yourself to death, and for what? Scraps? No future. I can give her more. And she knows it now. That's why she left you. Face it, you were always the problem. My knees weakened and I sank onto the bed, clutching the phone to my ear. His words stabbed me deeper than any blade. But then the realization hit me. This wasn't about love for our daughter. This was about control. This was about him taking away the only thing I had left, the one reason I had survived after he walked out. You poisoned her against me, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. You told her lies about me. That's why she said those things. His silence was confirmation enough. Then he chuckled again, this time darker. Oh, don't act so surprised. You knew this day would come. She was bound to find out sooner or later. You think children forget the things they see? You think she doesn't remember the nights you cried yourself to sleep? The nights I walked out the door and you begged me to stay? You think she doesn't resent you for keeping her in that tiny apartment, struggling to make ends meet? She told me everything. And do you know what she said to me the first time she came back into my arms? I didn't want to know. I begged my ears to close, but his words drilled through anyway. She said, Dad, you were right. Living with her felt like being buried alive. A sob tore out of me, raw and uncontrollable. My chest heaved as if my lungs were collapsing. I wanted to scream, to curse him, to deny every word. But deep inside, a seed of doubt had already been planted. Was I truly the reason my daughter hated me? Had I failed her in ways I couldn't see? He didn't give me time to respond. His voice hardened, dripping with venom. So here's the deal, sweetheart. She's staying with me now. Don't come looking. Don't call her. Don't try to interfere. Because if you do, she'll hate you even more. And trust me, you don't want that. The line went dead. I sat there, trembling, my daughter's note still clutched in my other hand. My world was crumbling piece by piece, and I was powerless to stop it. Or so I thought. That night I couldn't sleep. My body ached from exhaustion, but my mind refused to rest. His words echoed in my skull like a curse. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my daughter's face, her cold expression, her cruel words. But beneath all that anger, I knew the truth. She was still my little girl. And I wasn't going to let him take her from me. I decided then I would fight back. The next morning I went through old boxes I had hidden in the attic. Boxes I promised myself I would never open again. Inside were court papers, restraining orders, and a worn leather notebook filled with his secrets. I had documented everything from the nights he disappeared, to the debts he owed, to the bruises he left behind, not just on me but on our family. I had evidence. And if I couldn't reach my daughter with love, maybe I could protect her with truth. But as I spread the papers across the table, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't an unknown number. It was a message from my daughter. My hand shook as I opened it. Don't contact me again. I'm happy here. If you really loved me, you'd let me go. The words crushed me all over again. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see. But then something caught my eye. At the bottom of her message, barely visible, was a photo attachment. It was her sitting on a leather couch, smiling. But what made my stomach drop was the reflection in the mirror behind her. Her father wasn't alone. Another woman stood there. Young. Beautiful. Smiling at him as if she had won a prize. And suddenly I understood everything. This wasn't just about taking my daughter from me. This was about replacing me. Erasing me completely from her life. He wasn't giving her a father. He was giving her a new family. One where I didn't exist. The rage inside me boiled over. I slammed my fist against the table, the old papers scattering across the floor. He wanted war? Fine. He would get it. But little did I know the next move wasn't mine to make. Because that very night, as I sat by the window waiting for a chance to call her again, I saw headlights pull into my driveway. My heart leapt, thinking maybe, just maybe, it was my daughter coming back. But when the car door opened and I saw who stepped out, my blood froze. It wasn't her. It was him. He stood in the glow of the headlights, tall and confident, as if the years apart had never happened. His hair was streaked with gray now, but his smirk was the same, the kind of smirk that once made me fall in love, and later made me hate myself for it. He carried no flowers, no apology, no trace of shame. Just arrogance, wrapped in the expensive leather jacket he probably bought with money he never earned. My chest tightened as memories came rushing back. The nights he left without explanation, the fights that ended with slammed doors, the mornings when I would find empty bottles hidden under the couch. And yet here he was, standing in my driveway as if he had every right to be. I wanted to slam the door shut, but instead I found myself frozen at the window, staring. My body trembled, not from fear but from rage. Then came the knock, slow, deliberate, echoing through the house like a warning. I opened the door, but only slightly. "What are you doing here?" I hissed. He smiled, tilting his head, eyes glinting with amusement. "What, no welcome home?" "Home?" I spat. "You lost that word the moment you walked out on us." He chuckled, brushing past me as though I hadn't spoken, stepping right into my living room. I wanted to scream, to push him back, but his presence sucked the air out of the house. He sat on the couch, crossed his legs, and looked at me like a king inspecting his servant. "I came," he said, "to give you a chance. One chance. Let her go willingly, and maybe she'll remember you with some kindness. But if you fight me," he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing, "you'll lose her forever." I clenched my fists. "You already poisoned her against me. What more do you want?" He smirked. "Simple. I want her future. And you're standing in the way. You were always standing in the way." The way he said it made my stomach twist. There was something deeper, something he wasn't telling me. And then, almost casually, he dropped the bomb. "She's not just with me. She's enrolled in a new school. She's moving out of state. Soon she'll forget Austin. She'll forget you. I'll make sure of it." My knees nearly buckled. "You can't do that," I whispered. "You can't just erase me." He stood up, towering over me. "Watch me." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I stared back at him with all the strength I could muster. "You may have fooled her now, but she's still my daughter. She'll see the truth one day." He leaned closer, so close I could smell the cologne I once loved, now sickening to me. His voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "If you really believe that, then you don't know what I'm capable of." I pushed him back, my hand trembling, and yelled, "Get out!" My voice cracked, but it carried the fury of years of silence. "Get out of my house." For a moment I thought he would fight me, but instead he laughed, slow, mocking, cruel. Then he walked out, slamming the door behind him so hard the picture frames rattled on the walls. I collapsed onto the couch, my body shaking, my heart pounding. I didn't know how much more I could take. First my daughter's words. Then her note. Now his threats. I was drowning, and I didn't know if I had the strength to fight anymore. But then, just as despair clawed its way into my chest, I saw something on the floor. A slip of paper, half tucked under the couch cushion where he had been sitting. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a receipt dated just days ago. For a hotel room. 2 nights. Paid in cash. And the name written under "additional guest" made my blood run cold. It wasn't my daughter's name. It was another woman's. My mind spun. If he had lied to me about her being happy, if he was keeping secrets even from her, then maybe, just maybe, my daughter wasn't as safe as he wanted me to believe. That night I barely slept. I sat in the dark with the receipt clutched in my hand, torn between fear and determination. One thing was clear. If I didn't act soon, I could lose her forever. The next day, I drove to the hotel listed on the receipt. My palms were sweaty on the steering wheel, my heart hammering with every mile. I didn't know what I would find, but I knew I couldn't turn back. When I arrived, I walked into the lobby, trying to look calm even though my knees were shaking. "I'm here to see my daughter," I told the receptionist, showing her a picture. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Room 307, she whispered. I climbed the stairs, every step heavier than the last. My breath quickened as I reached the door. My hands shook as I raised them to knock. But before I could, I heard voices from inside. My daughter's voice, angry, trembling, and his voice low and commanding. "You don't understand," she cried. "I don't want this." My heart stopped, and then came the words that shattered me all over again. "Too late," he said coldly. "You're not going back to her. Ever." My entire body froze at those words. My heart pounded in my chest so violently I thought he would hear it through the door. My daughter's sobs pierced the air, raw and desperate, and I realized in that moment that everything he had told me, about her being happy, about her choosing him, was a lie. She wasn't with him willingly. He had trapped her just like he had once trapped me. My trembling hand gripped the doorknob, but it was locked. I wanted to scream, to kick it down, but fear tangled around my throat. I pressed my ear closer, forcing myself to listen. "You can't keep me here," my daughter shouted. Her voice cracked, full of fury and fear all at once. "I'm going back to Mom." There was a sharp crash, something thrown, glass shattering. His voice followed, harsh and venomous. "You don't get to decide that anymore. She was always weak, and you're not going to turn into her. I won't let you." Tears streamed down my face as I realized the truth. He wasn't saving her from me. He was trying to mold her, to erase every piece of me from her. She was just a pawn in his sick game. I couldn't stand another second. With a surge of adrenaline, I threw my weight against the door. It groaned but held. Again, harder. My shoulder screamed with pain, but the lock snapped, and I stumbled into the room. The scene before me burned into my mind forever. My daughter stood in the corner, her face red and streaked with tears. A broken lamp lay at her feet. He towered over her, his arm raised, his face twisted with rage. For one horrifying second, time stopped. Then his eyes locked on mine. "You shouldn't have come," he growled. Something inside me snapped. All the years of silence, of suffering, of swallowing my pain. I let it explode. I lunged at him, shoving him back with a strength I didn't know I still had. He staggered, stunned, but quickly regained his balance. His eyes darkened. "You think you can take her from me again?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My body moved on instinct, placing myself between him and my daughter. "You will not touch her," I said, my voice shaking but firm. He laughed, bitter and cruel. "You're pathetic. You've always been pathetic. That's why she hates you." But before he could say another word, a voice broke through the tension, stronger than I had ever heard it before. "Stop!" my daughter screamed. She stepped forward, wiping her tears, her hands clenched into fists. Her whole body trembled, but her eyes blazed with defiance. "I don't hate her. I never hated her. You lied to me." He froze, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't believe what she had said. And in that moment I saw the truth dawn on her face. She had finally seen him for who he truly was. She ran into my arms, clutching me so tightly I thought I would break. "I'm sorry, Mom," she sobbed into my chest. "I didn't mean what I said. I didn't know. I didn't know what he was doing." I held her, my tears falling into her hair, whispering, "It's okay. It's okay. I've got you. I'll never let him hurt you again." But he wasn't done. His face twisted with rage and he lunged at us. For a split second I thought it was the end. But then sirens. Flashing lights flooded the window. 2 police officers burst into the room. They wrestled him to the ground as he cursed and fought, his voice echoing through the walls. "You'll regret this. Both of you." My daughter and I clung to each other as they dragged him out in handcuffs, his shouts growing weaker until the door slammed shut behind him. The room fell into silence. My daughter's sobs quieted into hiccups. I stroked her hair, my own body shaking as the adrenaline drained from me. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did he hate you so much?" I looked into her eyes, finally ready to tell her the truth. "Because I survived him. Because I wouldn't let him destroy me. And now neither will you." She buried her face into my shoulder, and for the first time in years I felt her warmth again. The warmth of the little girl I had raised. The little girl who used to hold my hand and call me her hero. That night, back in our small home in Austin, we sat together on the couch. She apologized over and over, but I told her she didn't need to. She was just a child who had been caught in the web of a cruel man's lies. The real gift was that she was here, safe in my arms. But as I tucked her into bed, I couldn't shake his last words. "You'll regret this." They echoed in my mind like a curse. I knew he would be behind bars for now, but men like him had a way of slipping through cracks. And I also knew this wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning of a new one. One where my daughter finally knew the truth. One where we had to rebuild the broken pieces of our bond. One where love had to fight harder than ever against the shadows of the past. I kissed her forehead gently, whispering, "Happy birthday, sweetheart. I'm so glad you're here." She smiled weakly, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "The best gift, Mom, is that you're alive." And in that moment, as tears blurred my vision, I realized something. She hadn't just come back to me. I had finally come back to myself.